G'day everyone, how you doing? It's Lawrence, aka the Kiwi, back with another video. And by the way, Merry Christmas and fingers crossed for a Happy New Year, huh? After the last few years, anything's possible for 2023. So seriously, let's keep our fingers crossed and hope something good comes from it. But anyway, on a whole different subject, I felt that this is a very timely time to do this video. We've just celebrated one of the most materialistic, if not the most materialistic holiday in Western society. And the reason why I'm saying this is I've had a number of people in the comments section ask me over the last few months, how do I afford to live the life that I live? Now, I don't know what sort of life you think I live. However, the reality of the situation is I live an extremely simple life. Now, the reason why I say, I don't understand or fathom what sort of lifestyle you think I live is if you're putting the word, how can you afford to live the life that you live? You might be under the impression that I'm worth a lot of money or have a lot of money or live this extravagant lifestyle, and that's far from the truth. And I mean that. I live an extremely materialistically free life. I have the absolute bare minimum, and I am extremely happy and at ease with that. However, the interesting thing is my life never used to be that way. 10 years ago, I was working 10, 12, 14 hours a day. I had my own business. I had a house on the hill in this town that I was renting. I had machinery, tools, equipment, everything that I needed for doing my fabrication work at the business, and I had a fully furnished home. And the reality of the situation was I was extremely unhappy. I was extremely stressed, and I was genuinely on pretty much a weekly basis. I was pretty miserable because I was just going. I had to bust out at least $7,000 a month just to make ends meet. And after about 10 plus years of doing that, it was about 10 years? Yeah, 10 years of, 13 years of doing that, I was just at a point where I was exhausted. I was genuinely just exhausted. And April of 2013, and I've mentioned this before in other videos, I made a conscious decision to start reevaluating my life, start looking at what was going on in my life, every aspect of it, or what I thought was every aspect of it. So what I started to do is I first started off with making conscious decisions about the people that I was associating with, the people I was doing business with, the people I was hanging out with, all that sort of stuff. And I started to make changes in my life as far as that sort of thing was concerned. Now, in a video that I did about how the creation process works, what I did was I made those decisions consciously, I wrote them down, and I started to act on them. Now, here's the interesting thing, and this is the one thing that a lot of people don't understand, is that the unconscious decisions started to play out. Because what I'd done was I made the conscious decisions over here, and the powers to be, whatever's in charge of this stuff, was like, wow, he's actually following through with what he said. Yay! Let's help him! Boom! And you're just like, what's going on? My world's falling apart. Now here's the thing. This is how you know if you're doing stuff that's in alignment with who you are as an individual. Because once the universe understands that it's like, oh, he's on the right track here. He's doing something or she's doing something that's in alignment with who they are as an individual. That's when the unconscious stuff, the stuff that you didn't want to have happen, the stuff that your ego, your consciousness, your mind as your ego was holding on to. So what happened was I started to have these events playing out in my life where I thought my butt was being torn a new one and all sorts of stuff that I thought was miserable and unhappy. Fast forward to where I am now, my life, I've gotten rid of pretty much everything that I ever used to own outside of just my main toolbox and a few items of equipment. And I have my Ford F-150 pickup truck, which I absolutely love, and I'm extremely grateful that I had the opportunity to purchase that. Those are the only items that I have. Where I live right now, I'm just renting a room from a friend of mine. That's it. My bedroom is the bare minimum. That's it. I don't have a whole bunch of stuff. If I have to pack up and move, I can literally put everything in the back of my truck and I can go. So what that allows me the ability to do is when I'm working, I can save a lot of money. You know, if I decide to really lock in and get going with a bunch of projects, I can, you know, I'm not making a huge amount of money a year. However, I can save a good amount of money a year. So that's maybe why you think I live, you know, or can afford to live the lifestyle that I live. That's the reason why. I don't own a home. I don't own property. I only own what I need. And this is the fallacy in life today, is so many of us believe that we need this stuff, that if we don't have this stuff, we're going to be outcasts in society and all that sort of thing. Me, I am so at ease with where I am right now in my life. It is awesome. I honestly couldn't be more at peace with who I am. And in all honesty, one of the single largest things that I've done just recently to help bring about that peace and that ease was genuinely doing the video about my near-death experience. I felt like I've had this huge gorilla lifted off my shoulders. Why? I don't know. I have absolutely no clue in any way, shape or form why that is. However, back to the materialistic side of life. What I've also started to realize is that having a lot of these inanimate objects around us that are made from steel and plastics and highly refined chemicals and all that sort of stuff take a colossal amount of energy to actually keep in our lives. And what they do is they drag our energy down, because when you are having to form steels or alloys or plastics or highly refined chemicals to produce lithium-ion batteries and all this sort of stuff, it slows the molecular structure down. We're slowing the atoms down, we're slowing the molecules down, and then creating what we want to create from that stuff. Okay? Well, when you're slowing stuff down that much, because everything that we have around us is being man-made, man-created. It's not from nature. So what happens is just something simple like this plastic screen cover for the GoPro. This is an inanimate object. It's dead. There's no life to it outside of just the molecular structure vibrating around inside of it. And we've had to slow the molecular structure down so much to actually be able to produce this, right? So for our consciousness to keep this in our consciousness, this area of energy in this particular item is being slowed down in our consciousness. So the more stuff that we have around us like that, like the larger the actual big screen is and your computer systems and all this different stuff, the more unhappy you become. It's the God's honest truth. The less of this stuff that you have, and it can be any sort of, it can be a huge CNC machine, anything that takes any sort of slowing down of this molecular structure. It's slowing down your consciousness. It's bringing you down to the absolute root base of who you are as a human being. And right now, because we're going through this new awakening phase in life, we transitioned into this new phase in 2012, end of 2012, there's this rise in our consciousness. So you're seeing, it's playing out right before us. You're seeing a lot of people, a good example, you're seeing a lot of people moving out of the cities and into more rural areas of the United States. And it's not just the United States, it's all over the world. People that have been living in these concrete jungles don't feel that it's natural. They don't know why they're moving. They just feel better when they're out in the countryside. Well, yeah. I mean, good God. When you're in these concrete jungles, your energy, your consciousness is being brought right down to the fundamental base. Like so slow. You're slowing your consciousness down so much. It's unbelievable. So when you get out into nature, that frees your consciousness. You're at one with creation. And it starts to bring your consciousness up. And you start to feel better. You start to feel more at ease. You start to feel more happy with yourself. And then when you go back into the concrete jungle, you're just like, oh, God, this is so draining being around this stuff. Well, it's because that stuff is sucking, literally sucking the life force out of you. Well, it's the same thing when you live an extremely materialistic life. Depending on the amount of materialistic stuff you've got around you and the amount of the really highly refined metals, plastics, chemicals for batteries, all that sort of stuff, the more drained you're going to be, the more dead you're going to start feeling inside of yourself. So when let's say you've got some friends or you know people where they've got a bunch of stuff in their house. The garage is absolutely packed, piled full. They've got storage units full of shit. And I saw this firsthand I was doing work for a guy up in Newbury Park who owned pretty much one of the largest storage facilities in the United States. And the amount of stuff that I would see people have up in that unit, like stored up in these units, just blew my mind. And it's like people don't understand that by keeping this stuff locked down in a storage unit, it's taking energy away from it. Stuff that you can't see, but it's still taking energy from your mind because it's still there. They have this term, out of sight, out of mind. No. Just because it's out of sight, it's still in your mind. Because if it was out of your mind, you'd open up that storage unit door, that shit be gone. Nope, that stuff is still there. And it's going to stay there until you get rid of it in some way, shape, or form. And the reality is this stuff sucks the life out of you. So when it's sucking your life out of you, you're starting to feel miserable, unhappy, stressed. And this will play out. You'll see this in so many homes throughout the entire Western society. Is when the husband comes home and he drops his ass down on the couch and all he wants to do is drink booze. Or get stoned, what have you. The parents get frustrated and angry with their children. All this stuff that's playing out in people's lives is because of the amount of stress they've placed themselves in consciously to keep this world around them alive. Because to keep this alive, you have to keep it inside your consciousness, inside your ego. So, I've never been one on this channel to tell people what to do. I've only ever given people, advice that I've seen in my own life or in other people's lives and tried to, help give them advice and then they can base their own judgment on that advice. So for me personally, the less and less and less and less stuff I've had in my life and the more that I've cleaned my life out of the clutter, the actual happier my life has become. And it's gotten to the point now where my life is so clutter-free that I can afford to do stuff that a lot of people can't afford to do. And that's where maybe you've gotten the idea that I have this very interesting life, when in all reality is I actually live an extremely simple, uncomplicated life. My work that I do is complicated enough. And that's pretty much all I have energy for, and that's the God's honest truth. And I'll do a video here later on this year in regards to the work that I do, so you can see the amount of energy that it takes for me to actually produce and manufacture what I do. So what my lifestyle gives me the ability to do is I can put all my focus into my work, and then when I leave my work, I am at So if you found this helpful in any way, shape, or form, I greatly appreciate it. And yeah, there'll be another video soon. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, between the beginning of next year and around June, I am going to be freaking busy. And when I mean busy, I mean busy. So I will try to keep the videos coming on a somewhat regular basis. If there's a bit of a gap between the videos, just know ahead of time this will be the reason why. I'll share this stuff with you later on this year. Alrighty, outside of that, hope everything's going well for you all, and we'll be back in a little bit. Alrighty, cheers.